Member of the bench faces accusations of misusing her position of responsibility to enrich herself. On the other end, Deputy President William Ruto tops the list of most corrupt Kenyan holding public responsibility, while Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru is second most corrupt according to a recent Ipsos survey. Also in the program, two IEBC commissioners walk back their resignation barely 5 months later, but those are slammed on their faces. Tonight, we are picking our battles wisely. But first, my take. Now, the arrest of Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu marks a turning point in the war against corruption. I know it's too early in the day to make any determination, but this is the strongest statement yet that the anti-graft crusade has reached a point of no return. Nobody is untouchable and no arm of the government is beyond reach. Now, since the matter is in court, we have to walk the tightrope of sub judice and deliberately refuse to canvass the merits and demerits of that case. First, we feel encouraged that action is finally being taken to end the endemic virus that has eaten the core of the nation's fabric. We have reached a stage where, though nothing could be done to uproot the virus, perpetrators of graft lived in a world of their own, sitting pretty, assured that they are beyond reach and the reach of the law, and the disillusions and despair was setting in. But now, there are clear signals that those days are numbered and that those who thrive on corruption will at last find a way in court to answer to criminal charges. Second, we urge that the cases must be properly adjudicated and expeditiously dispensed with. So many top guns have been arraigned in court over the various scandals, including officials of the National Youth Service, the Kenya Power, National Lands Commission, and the Kenya Railways, as well as governors. However, we are appalled by the slow process of the cases. In my view, quick disposal of the cases is a prerequisite to good administration of justice and, most importantly, inspires public confidence that action is being taken. Now, the converse is that delayed signal, procrastinations, lack of convictions, and indecisiveness, all which negate the anti-graft crusade. Third, concerns have been raised over the drama with which the arrests are being made. That the ODPP and the Director of Criminal Investigations have taken to seizing suspects on Friday evenings or over the weekend and keeping them in custody until Monday smacks of a system designed to humiliate and punish. It cannot be argued that there is a better time for effecting arrests, but the principle is that whatever is done should be designed to infringe, not to infringe on suspects' rights. Now, the argument we are making is that investigators must move with speed to probe and rein in on all graft suspects and in turn prefer charges that can sustain conviction. On their part, the courts must expedite the cases and impose hefty penalties upon convictions to send the surest message that graft has no place in the land. In the words of Martin Luther King Jr., human progress is neither automatic nor inevitable. Every step towards the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggles, the tireless exertions and passionate concerns of dedicated individuals. My guests tonight, Alice Wahome, Peter Kaluma, Herman Manyora, and Daisy Amdanya. My name is Ken Mijungu. Hashtag is sidebar, Ken Mijungu, @KenMijungu, and NTV Kenya SMS feedback line 20868. Welcome to the program. Sidebar begins right now.
I informed the Chief Justice David Maraga of my decision to grant consent for the arrest and prosecution of the Deputy Chief Justice, Lady Justice Philomena Mwilu, on criminal charges. This decision has not been taken lightly, but it is the right decision under the law. The evidence in our possession reveals that 1. Lady Justice Mwilu abused her office for personal gain, accepted a gift in the form of money in circumstances which undermined public confidence in the integrity of her office, obtaining execution of a security belonging to Imperial Bank Limited, now in receivership by false pretense, unlawful failure to pay taxes, conducted herself in disregard of the law. In view of the above, I have concluded that the evidence is sufficient with a reasonable prospect of conviction, and it is in the public interest that criminal proceedings should be preferred.
And indeed, we saw them in court this afternoon. It's a first, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin with Daisy. Your observation, what has been happening throughout the day?
Well, I think it's a real shocker. You know, the judiciary is one of the three arms of government, and a high-ranking official such as the DCJ, it definitely sends shockwaves, you know, through, I'm sure, the judiciary and through the nation. It is not something that can be taken lightly, and it gives pause, you know, for concern, and for us to begin to ask ourselves, you know, to begin to have a very serious conversation as a nation. But I think listening to the DPP, he is clear that the decision has not been taken lightly, and it cannot be taken lightly, because this goes to the very heart of justice and the rule of law. So for me, I think it's also very sad. It's a sad day for me. First of all, of course, because such a high-ranking female public officer is being subjected to this. And I really hope that even as we support the fight against corruption, that it is not a selective fight, you know, that it is a fight that is seeking to establish or re-establish the rule of law in Kenya.
Okay. Peter Kaluma.
Ken, I've always supported the fight against corruption, and I've encouraged that we proceed in a manner that is not selective. We proceed in a manner that does not discriminate. When the message came that the DCJ was to be arrested and arraigned before court, as a member of a committee that oversees the judiciary, I got concerned, and I rushed to court. My initial instinct was to go to court to see what the issue would be. But I can tell you, seeing the charges which are to be preferred tomorrow, now that it was adjourned to tomorrow, I can now assure you I'm going to join that legal team. Okay. The reason I believe that in as much as we should fight corruption, we must also do so fairly. We must also have a case. You know, Ken, charging the Deputy Chief Justice is a world news. There must be something earth-moving.
Okay. And you don't think,
to date, ask anybody, even a person on the street, the reason as to why the DCJ was taken to court, despite even the press con by the Director of Public Prosecutions, nobody will tell you what the issue is. They are so vague, so frivolous. I don't know what lawyers would be having in court. I
have one of them that I will ask about. That's number 3 from the statement by the DPP. Obtaining execution of a security belonging to Imperial Bank by false pretense. I don't understand it. I'll come to that. But Herman, your initial comments about the arrest is insane. I don't know if you've seen it. I've never seen it. And arraignment in court.
You know, it is still too fresh. It has just happened, and what we are reading, a mixture of myth, truth, false rumors, and you can't know which is which. But my initial reaction is not a good thing. Perhaps we don't seem to understand how these things work, because you see, I have argued even here before that the Supreme Court is a national shrine. It's a shrine. It is a place we place all our faith as people. That when you and I would want to kill each other, there are people we can go to who can arbitrate between us. When we created the Supreme Court, it became now even something more of a national shrine, almost in a religious sense. So that Philomena Mwilu is supposed to be a goddess. You know, I'm joking, it's a goddess. These are small gods. If you've seen how societies have, like if you read Chinua Achebe, in other words, you choose among yourself people, you give certain powers that are not human to be able to arbitrate in times of difficulties or intervene between you and your creator. So there must be something like my friend here says, earth moving for you to touch a CJ. And even then according to me, I'm not a lawyer, looking at what comes from Haji, it makes good stuff for the removal of a CJ or a deputy CJ. Just looking at it, because I'm not a lawyer. I'm trying to fix the criminal thing in it. You see, it's like I'm fishing something. But it is something you can put before the Judicial Service Commission to remove a deputy CJ. And once you do that, then in the process of that removal, especially if you finally remove her, they will have emerged sufficient evidence now to go into criminal proceedings. Remember now, at that time, she will not be dragging the Supreme Court to the court, an inferior court. You cannot drag the Supreme Court because that's what they did. That lady has not gone there alone. Okay. The entire Supreme Court is under, is it a magistrate's court?
Yes, it
doesn't happen like that anywhere in the world. I think it's wrong.
Okay. Yeah. Alice, as a lawyer, you know, it's not seen, it's never been seen before, it's not been witnessed before, but the fact that a senior judge level of a Supreme Court was dragged and put before a magistrate's court.
Yeah, okay, let me first say that I want to associate myself with the sentiments my sister Daisy has stated, that I think for women it is a sad day and it is unfortunate that a very senior female public servant who we had expectations that would deliver on this position has now found herself in the position that the lady judge has now been put into. Having said that, I want to say that we will, and we have agreed as Kenyans, that we should support the fight against impunity, against corruption, and therefore one would want to be objective in terms of the processes of bringing to justice people who may be found to have done things that are in conflict with the law. And you know, I am very careful about this particular matter because I was maybe the only registrator in the last parliament that had a petition in objection to the lady judge appointment.
I'll talk about
to that
I'll
position.
Talk about that.
So yes. Now to find herself in the position she has, I hope that the charges, I have looked at them, are sustainable because we also don't want to bring that level to the court, you know, to a criminal court. And of course there are questions as to whether that was the right choice of determining this matter, because there are, of course, there are options, like of course the JSC through the appointment of tribunal, but you see then thereafter then you pursue the criminal charges. I think it would have been neater.
Why was that not an option?
But we have also said that there should be no sacred
cows, but we know how the process, Article 168, we know how the process, but why was that not an option? Why was the rush?
You see, Ken,
yes,
that was the decent thing to do if we were to avoid the situation my brother Manyora is talking about. We have the Deputy Chief Justice being tried, and if indeed the matter reaches plea, because I know the position the lawyers may be taking from tomorrow is that she should not even take plea on these charges, which I'm telling you, having looked at them as a lawyer, appear to me very vague and difficult to understand.
Okay.
If you were to reach that level of trial, remember she would be in office undergoing trial as the Deputy Chief Justice before a subordinate court. This is the Deputy President of the Supreme Court. And that is why I agree with my sister Alice, that the decent thing to do when you have such accusations was to remit whatever evidence you had
to the Judicial Service Commission.
And by the way, the DCI or EACC could have done this. I'm told EACC is not involved in this, it is DCI.
Okay.
It was to remit all this evidence there. And you remember the first Deputy Chief Justice under the Constitution was removed by the JSC. So that as and when this evidence is clarified and there is clarity that there is a criminal offense, you are now proceeding with an individual who is already removed from the seat of the judiciary.
The question is, ladies and gentlemen, why was there a hurry? Because that's the option that we have seen judges being removed. But why was there a rush?
I don't think we can answer that, because that's
no. But
we need to put that question to the DPP.
But perhaps you can mirror into their minds and think in the mind of the
DPP. The particulars of the counts clearly show that some of the particulars or the offences are alleged, and I choose the word alleged, to have been committed in 2013 and 2014. So we don't know. We can't say there was a hurry, because we don't know whether, investigations.
My question is this: the DPP knows the procedure of removing a judge. Why didn't a petition get ready, and why didn't they present it before the Judicial Service Commission? That is my question.
So that we don't have a judge
appearing before a magistrate.
You're putting the magistrate in a very...
Why? Is this because the DPP has come out as a person who fights graft and he has to go for the jugular?
There could be another reason, you see.
Which is the reason, that's why I'm asking. He's telling me.
Not in terms of the speed at which these things are moving, but the adage that everybody is nobody.
Okay.
You know, corruption fights back. So if you bring in the mix everybody, then the whole things look like just like a joke. So that now, if I'd been dragged through the courts, through the revolving doors at EACC, now I can face my children. See, now, you know, it's easy to take.
I have a different take, and I agree with you that we should also ask ourselves, why all this? This is what we're talking about now. I think probably every media house, social media, this is what we're focusing on. We're not focusing on some other things that are happening around the world. Our president is currently in the US. He's signing, he's coming back. Yes. He has just signed a loan, a new loan. We've just entered into new debt, you know, at a time when we're facing an economic crisis. I mean, for me, I keep saying that it's possible. And I want to agree with you that there could be something else in the works to have us distracted, to chase after issues that that are very, you know, hot button issues for the moment, and not focus on some very serious issues that are happening.
You believe
I actually think that could also be something, a smoke screen that we're playing, because I was shocked when I saw, you know, that the president, you know, signed us off into this debt, and we're in an economic crisis. So perhaps that could be the smoke screen to keep us busy with corruption while we continue to sink further and further into debt.
Can have a thinking that is away from law. You know, Chief Justice Maraga is retiring in 2-3 years. That is one thinking around what could be happening. Could some people be playing succession, knowing as we do that if the DCJ continued to be DCJ, she would be at a vantage position
to hold the position of the chief.
There are some people seeking to shake, you know, the apex of the judiciary before that time comes. And to me, the question you're asking is what lends credence to the thinking that there could be some malice or extraneous issues being litigated here. Because if you have real cases, why not take them, you get this lady out, and we would support you, so that you take her there, other than as our Deputy Chief Justice.
Well,
so there is a possibility of succession. Something else talked of a revisit. I don't think this is the revisit.
But she wasn't the only.
That is yet to come.
She was the only judge.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to come back and discuss more about that, but stay with me. When we come back, we're taking also your feedback. We'd like to know what you think of this. We're asking our question on social media at NTV Kenya, at Ken Mijungu. Respond to them. We're going to take your feedback. But first, let's take a break. We'll be back with more questions and more answers on the rest of the Deputy Justice.
There is only one way to put on a condom. You pinch the tip, place it on, and roll it down. PPR. That easy.
Everyone has a desire. Some desire and talk.
My name is Morebi Bob. I'm a test technician.
I wanted to be a driver like him.
Mzara yuko mzuri, nakula vizuri, nazi vizuri.
But some desire and make it a reality. Desiring is good, but getting the job done is better.
Sooner or later, utaona tu vijana kikuja kuomba job. Kuna miaka kama 6 sijalinda na fanya kazi. The military has exposed me to the world.
My Job on MTV. It's fresh.
I'ma keep it short and sweet. DJ play the song on repeat. Odi dance to the beat.
It's new.
See, right about now, you are rocking with the best. Oh baby, asa dance ni kone. Wabami jo.
Let tomorrow bless you with body, oh baby. Oh, yeah. Sucker.
Right, well, welcome back to Sidebar. We are talking about the arrest and arraignment in court of the Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu, unforeseen before. But let's come back with this discussion here. Alice Wahome, Daisy Amdan, Peter Kaluma, Peter Opondo Kaluma, and of course, Haman Manyora joining me in the studio to talk about this. Ladies and gentlemen, regardless of what happens tomorrow, as Kaluma says it, the reputation of the Deputy Chief Justice cannot be salvaged. It cannot happen. Did they foresee these effects, or we are now blinded by the fight on corruption to an extent that we don't care about the ripple effect?
You see, Ken, when we are making appointments of that magnitude, at that high level in society, of the Deputy Chief Justice, I expect a serious brief from the EACC. I expect a very serious brief from the intelligence. This thing, therefore, is a serious indictment on our intelligence.
Okay.
If it is true, all those things happened, and the intelligence let this lady go through all the process and become the Deputy Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya, that is a serious thing.
Reminds me of Ben Chumo. Reminds me of Ben Chumo. But we're going to talk about Ben Chumo. Alice, how is it even possible that it escaped the minds of those people in those institutions?
You know, you are taking me back to my petition.
Yes, now I want to talk about
I don't want to discuss those details because my petition was actually not given a fair consideration, and I forgot about it. And personally, I think that whatever is the case, the lady judge must be given and treated with the decorum, with the respect that the office that she holds deserves, until the point where it is obvious that she's involved in this. And even then, she must be processed properly and fairly. I say that, but I want to agree with Manyora that I don't think there was due diligence. And that has happened in many other appointments. We kind of are a bit of a joke. You know, we use nepotism, we use other considerations and factors, even when we are talking about very serious offices. And I say that because, you know, it is true. He called them goddesses and small gods. Actually, what he's trying to say is that you should be beyond reproach by the time we are considering you for the office, an office in the Supreme Court.
Okay.
So therefore, it is my view that there may have been gaps, and there have been gaps in other appointments, not just that one.
The DPP is very sure about the threshold of his evidence. I want to take you back, Daisy, to last week during the judges' colloquium, when the Chief Justice gave her a responsibility. When the Kibera Law Court issue came up, the judges were being bribed and extorting money from the members of the public. I mean, if the Chief Justice was not briefed, if he didn't know there were investigations against the DCJ, or did he know? Because otherwise he would have not given that responsibility. And a week later, your deputy is arrested and arraigned in court.
Yes, of course, I doubt that he knew. I mean, even now, I understand from news reports that he asked to be shown the evidence that was against her, that was being put against her. But it also does raise serious issues, not just about the JSC, but even the president. Because remember that the president is the final appointing authority. And by the time the president is actually endorsing somebody for appointment, the intelligence services should have really dug deep, you know, and assured him that he will not be embarrassed. Because if at all, and I'm just saying if at all, there is any politics that is being played here, it looks very, very bad on him too. Because it means that he is making appointments without consideration, without instruction, without being properly advised or being misadvised, or that people are playing politics with very, very serious institutions.
He comes at the tail end, Daisy. The president comes at the tail end.
But the president comes at the tail end. But remember that the president has at his disposal security apparatus to give him in-depth
Where do you leave
information.
Parliament? Where do you leave Parliament?
No. Parliament as well.
Yes.
But the president, remember that the president has security briefs. So he should be advised of these names that Parliament have sent to you. This one, don't touch because of ABCD. So either the president is not being properly advised, he's not being, you know.
Because
But
it actually
that,
goes back even to the JSC, because before the JSC,
you should
during
be
the interview.
You know.
I don't like the direction the debate is taking. Because we are debating as if the Deputy Chief Justice is on the wrong. So that we are questioning how come the...
what we are saying, hang on. Kaluma, we are saying if at all it is true.
Yes.
But what I want to say also is this, is that if this is politics, remember that whoever is playing this game is playing with very critical institutions that are actually going to damage this country. So that is why, even what you say, that it has to be done with due regard to the perception that we're creating. Because right now, if these charges are found not to be able to stick, they have damaged the reputation of the DCJ, but it has also it has put a cloud over the judiciary.
Okay.
You know,
but remember, the reputation of the DPP is also...
Yes, his reputation is also on the line.
Yes.
And so for me, that is what I'm saying, that, you know, even as we are fighting corruption, it must be done within the confines of the law. Because the minute we start coloring outside the lines, then it's a free-for-all.
I appeared before the Deputy Chief Justice when she was a judge of the High Court. I also appeared before her when she was a judge in the Court of Appeal. I've appeared before her on 3 occasions before the Supreme Court, including in the presidential petition. What I can say is that I also sat in Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, which vetted the Deputy Chief Justice. And this is why I told you I went to court. I wanted to see anything that could contradict my position that this was a competent lady, this is an incorruptible lady. And that is why I'm telling you, to date, I've never seen any. And that is why I'm telling you I'm joining the legal team tomorrow. How I want us to approach it is, how do we move forward? If we have to secure the fight against corruption.
I'm going to talk about that in a bit, but first, let's listen to this.
Mara nyingi ametukana wakina mama. Tumefika kwa mahakama yake akapeleka wakina mama na makesi ya wakina mama vibaya. Siamini ya kwamba akipewa kesi ya wakina mama atamalizia vizuri kulingana na vile katiba imewekwa. Kwa hivyo hapo hata nikiingia mbunge, mimi kura yangu nitaweka ya no.
Hatred created at the FIDA case was being visited on me in the election petition, and the honorable member had made, I think, a firm decision that she was going to make it extremely impossible for me to hear her case.
Does she actually carry hatred against the haters? I mean, just a clarification.
My style of dealing with haters is first ignore them. Because most haters are cowards. They will not confront you on your face. But when they do, they meet their match. We deal with the matter as is. I have carried this pain since 2011. Because from that day, the Honorable Alice Wahome picked me for beating up whenever she had a problem, and decided that I was the sole reason the petition was lost. Please do your private check. Nobody would attempt to come to bribe me. Nobody would attempt.
Right, and I'm glad to have Alice Wahome and Peter Kaluma, who sat during that process, and of course we covered it. But let me come to you. What did you know about her that people don't know, especially on corruption?
Before I came here, I had sworn that, and I really want to avoid discussing the details of that petition, because the petition was not given a fair hearing. It was not just about the issue of the women that I was raising. There were 3 fundamental issues, even without going to serious details about it. I had talked about incompetence, I had talked about corruption, and I had talked about treatment of women because I had been in another matter. It had nothing to do with my own personal case alone. Okay. There was my personal case that I was saying that was mishandled for reasons that are different from proper trial factors. In fact, my case was never decided. I just withdrew it after I became a member of parliament. Okay. It was never decided. It was withdrawn. It was an election petition. Election petition. It was an election petition that stayed for more than 2 years before the Lady Justice, and I had reasons to request for recusal for 4 times, and that was declined. And I even wrote a letter even before I went to the parliamentary committee before them. He is here and he can agree that they rubbished and they did not give the petition any hearing. They didn't listen to the petition. That's the committee. I also wrote to the EACC, and you see, we are not here to discuss now those details. And have personally said that that's a matter behind us. Okay. And these are other matters now coming. Okay. And I would want myself even that the Lady Justice should be treated fairly. Okay. If for any reason these things are actually found to be true, then of course she will be treated like any other Kenyan before the law. But I don't want to discuss details because okay. But I have said very briefly it was corruption, it was incompetence, and
very interested in the area of corruption.
There was no corruption claim in the petition my sister brought, and you must find it unique that this was a petition brought by a member of parliament against a nominee for a position being dismissed by your colleagues. Let us be, fair to this lady. As members of Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, we considered Alice's petition fairly with her present together with the DCJ. And indeed, she chose herself not even to prosecute it when we exposed what were the undercurrents. But let me tell you what was happening at that time.
Let's be honest. I have just said I don't want to discuss details. You can see I'm actually struggling to speak, to get airtime to address the committee. The committee did not allocate time to the petition. But that's the matter behind
Let us put the petition aside. Yes. Let us put the petition aside. There was the thinking at that time that the DCJ must come from Eastern. And so there were political moves to block this DCJ. For a judge currently in the Court of Appeal who is coming from Eastern, but Upper Eastern, that was the thing here. And Alice and others were playing their chat in that direction. That we couldn't allow. This is a judge who is one of the most competent judges we have in this country. And if today we can sit here to say, even after that Supreme Court performance, you can still say this lady is incompetent, there is something very wrong about our thinking around competence. Okay. Let us leave that behind us. Let us go to issues which matter now. Okay. Yes. But because we don't want to go to those underlying issues, which
But how do you reach the conclusion that she's the most competent judge we have around?
I'm not saying she's. I've not said she's the most competent,
but
I've said she's one of the best we have around, and that I can take oath on.
Okay. Yeah. All right. The reason why I was interested in that is especially the corruption bit, Herman. The corruption bit that at that time there's a lot of things that were said about corruption, particularly in the committees. And specifically with Alice, and people ignored it.
There was none.
There was no corruption. Yes. But
Karumba, the petition was mine. Don't make me go into those details. Because I actually even did a letter to the EACC.
Yes.
Yes. And the time the EACC were coming back to me, the petition had been disregarded by Parliament. And they know. And they know it had been discarded.
Why
and
did you pursue it with the SEC?
It's not fair for us to bring this up now.
Which is okay. My concern is, at that time, when we have just spoken about misadvice going to President Uhuru Kenyatta. We've just spoken about institutions that might be complicit, you know. So my question is, why didn't they realize at that time that there are corruption issues?
And that's why I'm saying.
Let me speak to her.
That's why I'm saying my petition is not.
We did not see a claim on corruption, but if there was, Alice is telling you
she's saying there was.
No, she went to EACC. She wrote imagine even EACC never saw it, or why have they not acted on it? There is nothing.
You know the take home from this.
The EACC contacted me after she had been appointed.
Okay,
and I thought that is now an academic exercise.
Yeah. You see, the take home for me, following these two, really reveals what we have always known our parliament to be, and the special committees. They are not serious people.
House of Trade.
They just, you know, even when you hear the current committees summoning people, you listen and wonder, if an MP is asking for this kind of information in this kind of forum, what the hell are we talking about? When you would expect a committee beefed, supported by a back office team of researchers, of assistants, so that by the time we execute
to be a member of parliament, we see how we will perform. You know, we must avoid this situation, Ken. We must avoid this situation that at public fora, all we do is to bash institutions.
No, what I'm saying, no, we are not bashing. I'm saying, for example, yesterday,
Parliament is one of the best institutions ever run.
Excuse me?
Yesterday I watched, Ken, I watched an MP, and MP is asking some, I think it was a PS of youth affairs. Now, these companies, are they the same? Do they have the same directors? Now, I ask myself, what is all this now? Before you come to such a sitting, you have that information. For heaven's sake, my friend. That's what I'm talking about. So we can see what you are doing, and what we see is lack of seriousness. And this is what we are now saying here. That MPs are not serious with the work they do.
And they take 10,000 shillings.
Yes.
Let me tell you.
The sitting allowance, and they put in the pocket and go home.
Let me have my last on this issue of leadership. The members of parliament we have with the level of education and the investment in education in the country, in as much as it is a mixed grill manura, it has some of the best brains. And I want us to look at the work of parliament and all institutions as institutions. Don't take individual, messes or inadequacies and use it to measure institutions. You end up discouraging those ones doing very good job for this country. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right. I'd like to speak more about corruption. I don't want to get into the issue of Parliament and the committee.
Because we should also know that the matter is before the court. We shouldn't really
but she's not taken play, Alice. She's not
she has been charged. She has been charged.
We can discuss, so long as we don't go to the merits.
The merits and demerits. Merits and demerits.
Those charges.
And like my brother, like now my brother, he has now chosen that, because also some of those issues may come before Parliament, and he's in Justice and Legal Affairs Committee with me, so I can anticipate the debate across between me and him.
We trust that you do your work.
But he can't. Once he chooses to take up representation, and there is, then he would have to declare interest.
First, even if you are not a lawyer, and you look at those 5 or 6 so-called charges or allegations, whatever word you can give them, English is not our language. When you look some of them, like failing to pay some tax, then I get thinking, I thought if I don't pay taxes, even me, a small man, I have received a letter from KRA saying I owe them 2 million. So it's up to me to explain. Maybe my employer, I go with all the pay slips and stuff like that. So at what point do people pounce on you and take you to court? When we have Kenyans and not so Kenyans struggling in court with KRA over 2 billion shillings.
And they're just charged. They're not taken to court.
What are we talking about?
All right. Gentlemen and
What are we
ladies,
really talking about?
ladies, we're coming back to continue this
At least
discussion.
you'll have a fair
I'd like
day.
to talk about IEBC next, and I'd also like to talk about the Ipsos poll last week. But first, let's take a break. But let me read a few tweets, one or two, because we have to take this break. Let me see what you have. Right, on Twitter, there's this Frederick Okango of Third Way Alliance said, it seems that the DCJ is jinxed. Every occupant of it lives in a rather dramatic way, from you must know people, your age limit, and now the theft of public money. Right, the next. And Okango still, with the rest of DCJ, who is also a member of JC, the JC has not only been destabilized but also paralyzed. Right, and the final one, we have to take a break. Right, the final one is Jim Cage. It's no doubt that the war on graft in Kenya is political. The same camp that told us Ipsos are correct are the same people claiming that DPP's office and DCI Kenya are wrong today. So on that note, we take a break, but we're right back after a few minutes. Stay with us. And welcome back to Sidebar. Ken Mijungu here with four of my guests, two ladies and two gentlemen. Right, to conclude that discussion, the process we are talking about, Article 168 of the Constitution, fairly simple. Get the petition, take it to the Judicial Service Commission. They'll constitute a small committee to determine if the accusations or what is said about the DCJ is true or false. They'll take it back to the CJ. The CJ will then recommend to the President to form a tribunal to investigate that said judge. Then, based on the outcome of that tribunal, she'll be removed or she will stay, or he'll be removed or he will stay. A fairly easy process captured in Article 168. You can read it. But let's move on with another discussion on corruption. Last week, Ipsos released the results of the most corrupt individuals. And in the public office, Deputy President William Ruto at 33%, I think, and followed closely by Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru at 31%. Let's listen to this first.
Hawa mnaona wanazunguka kwa magazeti, wamejaza maneno porojo ya ufisadi kwa magazeti, wamejaza story headline kwa magazeti. Hawa watu mimi nataka niwaeleze, wakimalizana na kuandika headline na opinion poll ya bure, tukutane kwa wananchi.
Unaweza ambao wache siasa, lakini unapigwa na siasa. Na ukipigwa na siasa lazima urudisha na nini? Na siasa. Kwa sababu huwezi rudisha na uteknokrasia ama tuanze kuongea maneno mengine.
The whole of this story about constant, perennial, unending headlines about William Ruto this, William Ruto that, opinion poll this, corruption the other, is sponsored by our competitors because they cannot match our development record.
Right, sponsored by our competitors. And there's also a bite from Anne Waiguru who says, shame on you, Ipsos, right? They don't agree with those positions. I don't know from where you stand. It's a perception or not. It's a very difficult discussion. Let me begin with Daisy. I'll throw you under the bus. Right? Let's begin with you. Open that for us. This story, you know.
Well, it's a perception. Remember that they have gone. These people have polled ordinary citizens and they have asked people what they think, and people have said what they think. So you can't, I mean, they're not going to start accusing Ipsos of being unfair to them. They need to create a better perception before the people, because we know full well that if you look at the way the issues of corruption have unfolded in this country, from the Jubilee last term, in fact, if there is one thing that has really stood out for the Jubilee administration is the crisis of corruption. In fact, according to some, they say that this is perhaps the most corrupt administration we have had since independence, where corruption has really run amok.
Okay.
And we know that you know, because now they threaten to sue people, but we all know the biggest scandal ever, where billions of shillings were lost for the youth, you know, is still an issue that has not yet been resolved today. In fact, I was very happy to hear that the DPP said that they were going to make fresh investigations, and we hope that those are some of the things that are going to be investigated.
There's no double jeopardy in this?
The issue, she was never charged in a court of law. So for me, the issue here is this. You're talking about perceptions of people. This is what people think about you. Okay. This is how people see you. But Daisy,
it's not about whether you have been charged. Was 3 years ago, right? I mean, how do you still perceive Anne Waiguru, who left the office 3 years ago, as the most corrupt?
The corruption continues in NYS. In fact, NYS has been it's been like a looting machine.
Okay.
And people, she set it up. It was set up under her watch. The corruption happened under her watch. And so, of course, a lot of people associate her with that. So, until we actually see people being prosecuted, because it is agreed across the board that money was lost. But we have not seen a single person being arrested or charged with the loss of money in NYS. So
I'd like to go to Herman on this.
Yes.
Yes, the two individuals, Deputy President, and of course they have challenged that, and Anne Waiguru is saying he's going to sue them. Ipsos.
You know, Ipsos is a polling outfit. They are supposed to be scientific in their approach, and all they are carrying are perceptions. They ask, what is your opinion? And like Daisy says, if that's what people perceive, then you cannot really blame. You can't blame how they think. But to be, I have not looked at how they did it, but I know they did it scientifically. But opinion polls also have their own problems. I wish Tom was here. If you asked people who, in your thinking, is the most corrupt Kenyan, and then you put Raila Odinga, Kaluma, Alice, Ruto somewhere there, Anne Waiguru, there is a way in which you are leading people in a certain direction.
Okay.
The way the normal mind works, the person will know you are asking them to identify William Ruto, because that's a man whose name has been flying around, rightly or wrongly. So there are also issues of opinion polling. If you ask that question differently, or if you sort the opinions perhaps in a different way,
without mentioning the names, you mean?
You just look for another way. I'm sure there must be other ways. You may be surprised that Ruto may be ranked very low there.
Or it might not be mentioned at all. Alice?
I don't believe this poll. You know, we have just said that people's credibility and names and character are also important. People's profession. And we have just agonized about the impact that these charges, if they are not proper, or if they don't see the day, that they would have damaged the career of the DCJ. And that has happened before for other people, including sometimes the government being sued for malicious prosecution. So therefore, I would say the same thing. Before you carry out a poll like this, that you will target, that is likely to give this kind of result, because definitely it's not a coincidence that these two names, according to Ipsos results, produced Anne Waiguru and the deputy president. There must, as Manyora has said, have been some leading questions that were leading to some names, maybe among others. And therefore, it is a suspect poll, in my view. It could be politically instigated. We have seen other polls similar around this time. And there is a lot of political debate. You know, people are talking about handshake and other things. But there is a lot of pregnant politics and currents that are moving across, including realignments. And therefore, I have a strong feeling that this poll is not an innocent poll.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we have a law governing polls, including the requirement that a polling body can be required to disclose who sponsored them, who paid for the polling, for what intentions, you know, to poll. So if William and Waiguru are offended in any way, I think they should invoke the provisions of that law. But I tell you, a matter like this is why Kenyans are sympathizing with the DCJ. You know, I was looking at social media while I was on my way here, and the joke in social media is that we expected some deputy to be arrested, but certainly not the Deputy Chief Justice. That confirms to you that opinion polls are matters perception. That is why we must be careful, even when we fight corruption, that when you are fighting corruption, ask for the low-hanging fruits and investigate them. I mean, we may pretend there is something you need to show together with this. There is a time, you remember, Anne Waiguru was before the Parliamentary Accounts Committee on NYS, and she sort of brought the DPP through Murkomen, Duale, Farouk to the center of NYS. And remember what happened in that weekend. Can you remember the weekend the deputy president was saying Anne Waiguru cannot be catwalking, yet they were carrying money with bags with that other lady, I don't know what her name is. How can the deputy president be now standing with Waiguru, as we see now, saying they are clean? You know, we want the bodies that undergird the fight against corruption in this country you know, to go to the issues which have been patent in our faces, so that really we can, you know, be sure they are proceeding in good faith, and that there are no extraneous issues or selectivity in the processes.
One of the things that the governor said is that they will join hands with William Ruto. In fact, he said, don't look far for your deputy here. We'll join hands. Something that happened to the ICC. But perhaps the reason why... Perhaps the reason why the deputy president is confident in saying that because Anne Waiguru was not found guilty. Or she was never taken to court. She was never taken to court. Yes, she was never taken to court.
Continue dragging her name. It's still not fair because, again, we said, people have a reputation, people have names, and you cannot just now guide Kenyans to come up with some certain pre-made conclusions. So, because Lily...
But there were several names.
Yes, there were several.
There were several names. Why 10, 5 names? Why would they pick 2?
The other thing is, of course, this kind of thing doesn't make people happy. But remember, you're a public officer. When you're a public officer, you are subject to public scrutiny and public perception. So you can't run away from it. So you can't have it both ways.
Okay.
You are a public officer. And remember that we are talking about the fight against corruption. I have seen the Ipsos poll. Ipsos have answered the question about who sponsored the poll. They did it internally. And also because of the kind of atmosphere that's going on right now with the fight against corruption. And so remember that the fight against corruption is also looking at corruption in public office. Okay. And so I think, you know, the thing with our politicians, when they have opinion polls that say things that praise them, and show them winning or show them, you know, winning in the eyes of the people, they always support those polls. The minute any kind of negativity comes along, then they are not happy to endorse these polls. The issue, the thing is that this is a perception, it's a public perception. Okay. And so what they need to do is to work on the public perception.
Change it.
You know, prove, you know, because when you are under public scrutiny, you live in a fishbowl. People look at your lives. People look at how you conduct yourselves. People look at you.
Why not ignore it, considering that Kenyans don't care about those kind of things when it comes to voting? We vote in thieves, we vote in murderers, rapists. I mean, when did the Kenyans begin considering people's reputation and values?
Well, clearly the poll indicates that they do.
But a much more serious thing I wanted to say, Ken, was, you see, I am a little perturbed that Ruto would be thinking some people, and I think really they mean Raila and his team and Kaluma here.
Not necessarily.
Because I have advised to them. When I listen to them, especially with regards to this Ipsos, it will be remembered that last year, when we were drawing towards the elections, there are all manner of accusations against Ipsos as being used by Jubilee, just as the other one was being used by NASA, and that Ipsos was following the same category as now what do you call the Cambridge and so on. So what Ruto should be asking himself, this was our tool which we used. Who can now turn that tool against me? It can't be Raila. It can't be Raila.
That's the worry.
It can't be Raila. So he should be careful. Because people are reading it.
For me, the point is very simple. The appearance that there could be selective application of the law destroys public confidence in the fight against corruption more than anything else. And in fact, as Alice rightly says, where you have a situation where, for instance, a person is charged wrongly and is prosecuted, that person ends up being paid by the taxpayers, all the Kenyan public, by the state. You know, for the first time under the new constitution, Manyora, the salary of all public officers and state officers are gazetted. You don't need to go far if you want to confirm whether Kaluma is corrupt or not. Manyora, let me tell you, contrary to your thinking, my net pay as a member of parliament is 400,000. I don't know where those millions you keep. It is 421,000, I think so.
Plus allowances?
What allowances? At least it is true, isn't it?
We don't talk
because of salaries.
It is 600.
Never talk of net.
It is 600.
Because net takes into consideration,
isn't it?
Your commitments, your loans, your other things.
Salary is 400. I'm talking about with allowance. Salary is 400.
Member of Parliament's pay is 621,000.
Those are including allowances and whatever.
And something.
It's 400.
So if you want to confirm whether Kaluma is corrupt or not, look at his expenditures against his other obligations as loans. To what he earns. And I can tell you, these people telling you they are not corrupt. I mean, just take a trip with the deputy president over a weekend. And you see the expenditure
but you cannot,
against his gazetted
conclude.
pay. And you see there is a problem somewhere. So what I'm saying is that we need a law on lifestyle audit. And we deal
but you know,
them.
Ken, he's making very dangerous statements
allegations,
here. Allegations that if you accompany the DP, and because he's going to give $1 million or 500,000 in a Harambe, that is a conclusion that they are corrupt. What about when...
I think you should look at his statement wholesome.
No, but what about when you accompany Raila?
That is not what I've said.
Or when...
I mean, Ken.
And he's spending similar amount.
Ken, if you earn $1 million...
And we haven't seen him in any business.
And in a month you are doing a Rambes in which you are giving over 40 million against any other business you are doing. You want to tell me you are not corrupt? There is a problem.
You know,
we
there's a
want
reason why
lifestyle audit,
and
we deal with these matters at once.
You know,
I agree. The lifestyle audit.
Ken, I've said here many times.
That one I
I've said that we are led by corrupt people. All these leaders are corrupt, and they are all basically thieves. So maybe one leader is trying to prove another one is more of a bigger thief, but basically all these people are thieves. If you look at,
so can you now draw the line?
If you look at, you see,
it's the same allegation.
I say, for example, even these judges, even you say Philemona Mwilu, if you look at even these judges, somebody stays in Karen, he takes their children to London. Look here. Measured against what they earn.
Correct.
You didn't inherit property from your father. You have no known business. And yet, you have money to acquire a home in Lavington. You take your children to London in school.
Can take loans.
So basically, if you are to look for a Kenyan who has not stolen, you will have a problem.
There's only me.
It will be so difficult.
There are so many Kenyans.
It will be so difficult.
There are so many Kenyans who take loans. We've heard of members of parliament taking home 20,000 shillings because the whole of the pay slip.
Lifestyle audits are important and that they must be made public.
Okay, just a correction here. Green Gang tells me on Twitter that the posters on an interview on Citizen Kenya actually said that they did not provide any names to the interviewees. So they did not lead them.
They did not lead them.
Yeah, so he watched Citizen. Green Gang tells me that on Twitter.
That's why
it was objective.
That's why I said I didn't look at it.
Actually, you said
I still don't agree with them.
You still don't agree?
That's a statement.
You don't agree with Kenyans.
No, that's a statement.
Ken, this is why we need as citizens to make demands of our public officers. We need these lifestyle audits to be made public. We need to know how people have acquired what they have. We need to know how they are able to live such lavish lives as public servants, because we know that in Kenya, being a public servant has been an almost one-way ticket to riches.
All right.
And we've seen, I mean, if you've read Joe Hamisi's book, you see chronologically how Kenya has been eaten, you know.
Trying to look at who is corrupt in this country, who has stolen, is a waste of time, because all these fellas have stolen. Now, a better way to me would be to make stealing of public
money is punitive.
Impossible. One. And number two, to make the punishment so severe as in China, beyond a certain threshold of money you've stolen.
Execution.
Publicly, you are shot dead.
Now,
we could also engage the people who have stolen, our thieves, because they are our thieves. We could engage them in terms of returning some of these things instead of prosecuting them. Because this drama we are witnessing, it will take us nowhere.
But these are proposals that have been made.
Actually, the president, one time when the president said, "Mnataka nifanye nini?" he asked, "Do you want me to take them to Hurupa?" Ladies and gentlemen.
And that's why he has given, and that's why the president has given full goodwill, political goodwill,
in the fight
to prosecution. And therefore, there should be no sacred cow. And I'm very concerned when I hear Karuma saying that tomorrow he will be one of those lawyers when he's supposed to be oversighting. So he's actually abdicating.
No one has ever complained about lawyers' representation. Kaluma, I don't want to go into this.
Yes, certainly.
Yeah, I don't want to go into this.
When I get a nonsensical case before court, my first call, in fact, the oath of office I took. You are not the judge to decide. The oath I took to be an advocate. I said only two things. I will stand for the rule of law and the fair administration of justice. Where I find it that there is maladministration in justice, I'll intervene whoever you are.
All right, let's move on. We need pro bono.
No, they are looking for airtime.
Alice, we have to move on. Yeah, we have to move on. And of course, there was another issue.
It's a good airtime.
At the beginning of the week, or at the end of last week, I should say, the issue of the IEBC officials who stormed the office, they want to regain office. I mean, let's discuss this, but before then, let's watch this for a second.
We find our position as commissioners under his leadership no longer tenable. Consequently, we regret to announce our resignation from the commission with immediately effect. We thank the people of Kenya for according us this noble opportunity to serve as commissioners of the IEBC.
They came on Friday, and we were surprised to learn that they had retained some of the keys which they had not handed over and accessed their offices, but that has now been rectified.
Our offices are still locked, so we were not able to get the office, but we are going to issue a statement much later, okay? Thank you.
IEBC does not have offices for former commissioners. You cannot come here and say, I'm a former commissioner, give me space to work from here. Immediately they resigned, I wrote to the Treasury, the PS, to stop their salaries. Now, I am not certain whether that was done. Up to now, I've not got a feedback on my letter, but I believe that Treasury acted on the recommendations from the Commission that they are no longer in office, and I hope they are not being paid.
I mean, ladies and gentlemen, there was a lot of humor in that, but when things sticks out, how courageous were those two commissioners? How courageous can you become?
Courageous?
They were so courageous to go to the office.
How full of impunity can you be? In fact, if anybody should be arrested, DPP should be arresting those two ladies.
But why? They just went back to their offices.
Excuse me, they resigned publicly and with immediately effect. So, they
you had to say
no, really, I had to. But the thing is, they resigned and they followed every procedure. You know, for me, I find it so sad that we are not enraged by these people.
No, we are. How do you know we're not? We are.
That is the other question. And this is the thing that must be investigated. Who is giving them security? Who is the
and the salaries? Why are their salaries
Because
being
the Inspector General is supposed to be an independent office. He's not supposed to be facilitating the breaking of the law. Because right now, what they are doing is actually breaking the law. It doesn't matter. Of course, we know that these are political shenanigans and possibly to deal a mortal blow to IEBC. But we as Kenyans should be very worried because this is an institution that is supposed to be independent, that is supposed to safeguard and manage electoral process in Kenya. You know, elections, we tend to think that elections are 2022, but even the process, the procedures, how the people in office are conducting themselves. These two women have shown that they lack integrity. They obviously lack conscience. You know, for me, I'm just so sad that under the Jubilee administration, women in public office have been so notorious, you know, and it is, for me, it's so sad. You know, Kurgat was also one of the commissioners.
But he didn't appear there.
Yes. These women are conducting themselves.
He said he was going also.
You know,
first of all,
they have no business. They have absolutely no business. If the president does not gazette them, you know, once they resigned and followed all procedures of resigning, then the matter rests with the president.
Okay,
there's nothing of they can't be made to work you know, by force.
Chebukati says they didn't read the ruling properly because the ruling did not confer to them the right to go back to the office. Kaluma,
you see, these people resigned in public, and in that press address, if you look at
Stanley, I attended that.
They indicated they had dispatched a letter to the president. They went beyond that and cleared and filled clearance forms with the IEBC. You remember then there was a case taken to the High Court. Was it by Okia
Mtata? Yes.
But we should give him an honorary degree
in law,
public interest litigation, if not in law. And
these people swore affidavits, two great ladies, having resigned with immediate effect, swore affidavits deposing to the fact that they had resigned, and they did not enter that. They said they have dispatched the resignation letter to the president. What the president then does as the appointing authority is not their business. They have severed their relationship with the commission, and this can only be impunity. Okay. In fact, for us in Justice and Legal Affairs, I think we are watching this, but we don't want to be drawn into it. Because it is some bad joke. You will not even want to listen, Haman? No, I can't meet them.
You know, me, like everybody else, well, I'm a little mad, but at least I understand what's going on. And Kenyans, Ken, when you look at these people here, do you see a commissioner? Are these people you can entrust the life of a nation? Can you entrust the life of a nation in the hands of these kind of people? Just by looking at them. You just see them. It is the best you could afford for a commission. When you look at this commission and go back even to Kivuitu, before he messed at the very end and now you know he was unwell. Even Chesoni, a Moi appointee. Isaac Hassan, much more recently. This is too bad for a country. We must, as a country, learn to be serious. You cannot entrust something like IEBC, which is a matter of life and death, in the hands of these kind of fellows. Just by looking at them. All of them? Surely, by just looking at them. All of them? Of course, by looking at them. Maybe if there's one who can fluke through with the... But just by looking at them, they don't inspire confidence. No, they don't. Okay, Alice.
Well, very quickly, because this matter, while Karuma says that we may not give them attention, it is a matter that the JLAC, Justice and Legal Affairs, cannot afford to close its eyes and sweep under the carpet. It has to be dealt with squarely, because we are the oversight committee, and maybe even Kenyans are looking at answers, because as you say, there are questions that need to be answered. And therefore, on Thursday, these people are coming before us. Not these 2 or 3, but the chairman and his team, whoever he will think is his commission. We don't know by Thursday who will be the commissioners that he will bring. But we've written to him and summoned him, yes, to come and have a discussion with the committee. But I think the questions go deeper as to whether, because the case in court was not about these 2 or these 3. The question in court was whether the commission was properly constituted. Okay. And actually the judge did not answer the question, did not remove these commissioners that you are now seeing here from that equation. Okay. Because she said she has no evidence before her to declare that they had resigned properly. And and therefore she was like saying, insofar as she knows under the law the commission is properly constituted. And I think that was like a wise decision. With the absence of something before her. With the absence of anything that says otherwise. She did not address herself to the fact that they have gone and that now legally they are not there. Because there was no evidence. Because there was no material before her to show her that they had resigned. Therefore,
I just saw an order today. I don't know whether I was seeing it somewhere.
Well, there was somebody else who rushed to court. You know, some of the court.
And has gotten an order keeping them away from the office.
But actually the final question, Ken, and it's good that, you see, the resignation can only be final when it is accepted by the appointing authority, and a gazettement of the vacancies is actually... You don't have to. I have it's not a must.
There are also other basic personnel issues, very basic. Like for example, Ken, you work here. If you disappeared somewhere, you went to Mombasa for a weekend, and then you got some Digo girl and you got lost, and then you surfaced a month later, you already started your work. Forget about legalities. Forget about this and the other. You go for 30 days, then you come back and claim your position.
And for me, I'm concerned that Alice, who is a member of parliament, can actually consider that there is any merit in them being there simply because the appointing authority did not accept their resignation.
You have to look at the law. In fact,
no, they resigned publicly. They resigned publicly.
Those are the same questions. The judge, hold on, the judge was actually met by those specific questions that they had come publicly.
But you said that the judge did not have information before her.
No, and the judge had the same information.
The law requires that the president gazette within 14 days. So
he has not gazetted
for 4 months. So the error is on the part of the president, not on the part of
the
commissioner.
Don't be emotional about these things. So
I'm not being emotional.
The way the gazettement, they may have absconded office and duty, but the completion of their resignation has to be completed through the gazettement of that.
And that can you answer what the scenario that Haman has just given us?
But also more crucial that actually we don't even have also a CEO, and the chairman is actually also acting.
So is that a justification?
No, not for them.
Yes.
That the question that he raised regarding all these commissioners, and that now the CEO is acting as the CEO. I think
we also need to remember why they resigned.
They resigned,
in protest of the audit report that had been commissioned and the suspension of the CEO. The audit report, which has now brought results to show that there has been significant corruption.
Alice,
the things that you're seeing here, in terms of the behavior of both the chairman, and I'm saying this, and all those commissioners and people around there, there are more questions that need to be answered. I would agree with him that we are in trouble.
All right, now that you agree with him, I will not ask that question.
Then, what is resignation in law? It is the employee or public servant choosing to sever his relationship with employment. It is repudiation of an employment contract. It is done by the employee. Whatever steps the employer or the appointing authority takes to fill up that position is for the employer or appointing authority. It does not validate your continued existence. I think if you were to put it in the context that Manyora was talking about, when I get a Digo girl, I tell Kenyans from Mombasa that I've left an office and I come walking in there. What are you talking about?
Right.
So wrong.
These people have resigned. These are the impunity and integrity issues we are talking about.
Right, on that point, I'd like us to conclude that discussion because we've run out of time. I'm keeping you here a little longer, just about 5 minutes. But before we conclude that discussion, I'd like you, ladies and gentlemen, take a look at this cartoon, then talk about it, then we can conclude our discussion. Right, that's Donald Trump, the president of the most powerful nation, on top of a lot of African countries. You remember he said shithole countries. He's on top of them. President Uhuru Kenyatta there shaking hands with Donald Trump. He texts, he's tweeting, and behind there the baby is actually written the Big Four agenda, following Uhuru wherever he goes. So the fact that he's standing on top of Africans, Uhuru Kenyatta is still shaking his hand, and we have that.
Manyora is the best at it.
As the interpretation, yes.
You know, I have really talked extensively about this tour. You see, our relationship with our big brothers, America and the rest of these people, it really is bad. There is nothing you can get out of that relationship. You see, Trump, what is he doing? He doesn't even know who is there, and look at where he's standing. I mean, he's saying, this just says we are useless people. We shouldn't even be relating with this kind of people. Because if you look at even the concessions and the deals that were signed, you just feel pity that you're an African.
We wasted, in other words, you think we wasted time with this?
Big time. Because what America is doing is trying to get the best out of us as we get absolutely nothing. Even simple things, which is my pet subject. We subject Kenyans to the most inhuman stuff, buying second-hand bras and pants, and you know that kind of thing. You go to Gikomba, you see the kind of second-hand things Kenyans are buying and using, and yet when we wanted to get rid of them, or at the very least, increase taxation to bring down the second-hand importation of these clothes so that we can grow our industries, so that our young men and women can get jobs. Uncle Sam stood and said, try. The East African countries. Only Rwanda did it. And out of the window, the AGOA opportunities were thrown out. You can see what America is. That's what it is. You have no voice. You let them exploit you. They come to build a road for you. You know,
they're not building it for us, are they?
A road from Mombasa to Nairobi, when we have an existing road that we just did the other day, when we have SGR, and we are going to spend about 400 billion.
They're signing an extended debt with China.
The same America that the other day sanctioned the sale to Kenya of planes that are used to spray crops to be converted into military
planes. I know.
You know, but for me, this calls to question the role of Parliament, because Parliament is supposed to be the representatives of the people, and they should be able to look into these agreements that our president or our foreign ministers go to sign, and what benefit it has for the people, and they should be able to stand up against this. And I think Parliament are not playing their role. I am very concerned, by the way, about what this trip, what the president is coming back with this trip, added, you know, debt, and yet already we're in a very precarious situation, and we're not hearing anything coming out of the executive by way of incentivizing local production, local manufacturing. You know, we're giving incentives to foreign direct investors. We're taking loans for them to build for us, you know, development projects that we're not very sure how they're going to benefit us.
Kaluma.
I think we
you see,
have a problem.
Colonialism socialized us to see ourselves as inferior and the West as superior, not knowing that their business with Africa, you know, throughout has been exploitation. In fact, we are the ones feeding the West with resources and everything. And this is why I like the stance by the president of Tanzania, Magufuli. Magufuli says, I have no business going to Britain or wherever. I have a more beautiful country. If I have to interact with them, I have a foreign affairs minister. That is the attitude we need to begin, so that we can see the resources we have in Kenya are sufficient and we start using them. Look at the amount of land the white man who colonized us how many years ago on against indigenous people in this country. People who should be 10th grade Mzungu are living like they are lording it over us. And we go begging, we are entangling ourselves with the necessary debts. The resources we have in this country, this beautiful nation can move us forward. I think I agree there is need for a mindset change or an attitudinal change in the leadership to see how best we can exploit our nation to grow instead of relying on this exploitative
At least you have something on the cartoon?
I think that this is a cartoon trying to rubbish the visit by the head of state to the United States of America. I don't want to agree that the trip was inconsequential to the country, because obviously Kenya, like all countries, are really not going to live in isolation. There are so many other things that we are actually doing. And therefore, if we'll say that visiting now is, because that shithole was not just about Kenya, I think it was about Africa. So, it is possible that we already have things that are ongoing right now. There is a relationship, and severing it is not really like saying today we are not going to deal with America. I think it is ensuring that that relationship is beneficial and work on it. To both parties and work on it. So I think the visit cannot be for...
What do you remember from the visit that strikes your mind?
We are waiting for him to come. He will roll out. You know, we are looking for money for the Big Four. I mean, she talked about the Big Four. And I think there is something good about the Big Four. You know, the
Big Four is a
small baby. Obviously, it is 1 year old. Yeah, we need money for the 1 year old.
I'd like to conclude this discussion, ladies and gentlemen, by giving you 30 seconds. We are completely out of time. In terms of everything we have discussed, especially moving forward, I'll begin with Daisy and I'll finish with Alice.
I think Kenya is at a time where we have to have a national conversation about what kind of country we want for ourselves, what kind of leadership we want, how we want to move forward. We've had a false start on this national dialogue, but I think it's time that people started talking, and talking very seriously, because we have serious issues. We support the fight against corruption, but we want it to be done within the confines of the law.
Okay.
And I think that seriously, as Kenyans, we are in a precarious situation. We need to become serious about how this state is administered and what benefit there is to each and every one of us as Kenyans.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to fight corruption. It is among our national values and principles of governance that we secure transparency and accountability in our governance as a nation. Indeed, we lose so much to corruption annually in hundreds and hundreds of billions. But we must also remind ourselves that all bad things in every society done by people in office are done in the name of public good. And therefore, we must be cautious to ensure that the fight against corruption is never malicious, is never selective, and ends up, cleansing our society for the good governance of all of us.
All right.
Mine is to, in connection with corruption, which is actually theft, mine is to the President of the Republic of Kenya and to his team that is fighting corruption, the DPP, the halaki work of ESCC, DCIO. I want to tell them that we have had enough drama. If they had set out to entertain us, I think we have had enough of it. So either they give us some tangible results, okay? Let's see people, because there are people whose cases are open and close. People who have ended up to receiving money from the public in tens of millions for nothing delivered, and they use the money. So these are people, we want some people inside committee. If they are not willing to do that, then let them stop the drama.
Okay.
And especially trying to mix big corruption fights with small little things, fishing, somebody didn't pay their tax, somebody behaved in a manner that, I don't want that. I want to see people who have stolen,
okay,
being dealt with, and not these people who on the face of it appear really just innocent people.
And finally,
I want to encourage the President and the team that is now put together, because there is a multi-agency team to work on the corruption cases, but Kenyans must be prepared, because this fight will touch many people. Considering the magnitude of the corruption that we are seeing around, I think it will touch to levels that we have not seen before.
Okay.
And therefore, both politicians like myself, my colleagues here, must be prepared to support the fight against corruption, and there should be no sacred cows.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Before I say thank you, let's do this. Finally, tonight, we take a look back at allegations touching on the judiciary. Now, the year is 2003. The month is October. Now, this is the year Aaron Ringero, Justice Tribunal, saw the biggest purge in the judiciary. This was also the time the judiciary suffered the biggest credibility crisis. Now, several judges and magistrates were forced to step down, retire, or face the tribunal. In total, more than 80 judges were put on the spot. Among them, 6 Court of Appeal and 17 High Court judges were in the final list of shame. Now, 7 of the 23 judges named in the Ringero report list of shame asked for early retirement rather than resign to avoid investigations by the disciplinary tribunal, which was also a soft landing to ensure they still receive the full retirement benefits. Now, the judges include 5 of the 6 suspended appeal court judges and the 2 from the High Court. Judges Richard Kwach, Efiowar, and Mauja Ole Kaiwa, Amirtal Shah, and Abdul Laka chose to retire. Some of them were questioned by the police ahead of the tribunal and faced criminal charges. Among those who decided to face the tribunal and came out victorious is Justice Philip Pwaki. Let's talk about Philip Pwaki. He later headed a tribunal on the post-election violence that took the list of 6 to The Hague. That's the Ocampo 6. Now, Ringero later became the director of the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission 5 years later, 2008. Ironically, after making the famous big fish small fish comments at the defunct Kasa, he left without frying any big fish unceremoniously. Now, today, the country is witnessing one of the greatest spectacles out of the history, or in our history. The DPP has taken up its position and the DCI is firmly behind him. So far, the culprits cannot be counted on one hand. They are above 5. The question, however, remains, how far can he take this war? A good place to end tonight. And thank you for watching our program. And thank you to my guests here for coming and sharing with us. I've kept you a little bit longer, but I'm grateful, Daisy, Peter, Annalise, and Herman. Thank you very much for coming. And thank you to my crew right here. And good night. Let's do this again next week on Tuesday. We're sorry for not reading your feedback, but we're still online even as we go off air. Good night.